I know the clubs that some of them support.
Oh,
That's how I try to get to know people that I work with, irrespective of your grade or your position within the firm. Yeah. I know one of our cleaners in the office in Abuja that's a Liverpool fan. That's how I get it. To know people, and I tell him that he's worked alone this season. So that's it for me. It's a very simple rule of life that I try to obey.
Welcome to the Kingdoms Podcast, sharing the stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
So you were speaking about empathy, right? And I said I can vouch for you in terms of that. It's interesting that during my time at PwC, I joined as an associate. And I think at that time you were a director. And I don't know if you would remember, but you called a meeting, right? I don't know what happened. You probably heard about some people acting in certain ways you probably were not comfortable about, right? And then you had sessions with like different grade groups, right? And I remember you telling us as associates, right, that we should always try to, act with empathy, even towards our seniors, right? And I remember when I became a senior, right, you also had another meeting wherein you were admonishing us, like, try not to be the senior that you did not like when you were an associate. And then, it stuck with me, for the rest of my life. Because going forward, even outside of work, even in terms of like my business endeavors, right, I try to treat people with empathy. Try to think about, what if I were in this other person's shoes? Like, how would I like to be?
I mean, it's a simple rule of life. Just treat people the same way you want to be treated. That's. I mean, it's basic for me. Whether it's a cleaner, as a driver, as a fellow partner, as a manager. I mean, just treat them the same way you want to be treated. And let's see if the tables were to be turned, then how would you feel? It's so funny because that's the sort of relationship I try to have with everybody, recognizing maybe your profile, where you are in the scheme of things, but I still relate with you with respect. I mean, it would be strange to you that I've got even cleaners in my office. They have my numbers. They send me messages. I know the clubs that some of them support.
Oh,
that's how I try to get to know people that I work with, irrespective of your grade or your position within the firm. Yeah, I know one of our cleaners in the office in Abuja that's a Liverpool fan. That's how I get it. To know people, and I tell him that he's worked alone this season. So that's it for me. It's a very simple rule of life that I try to obey.
Interesting. For me, like, I've been able to observe you from, would I say, not so long a distance, right? Seeing your progression to becoming a partner, I see that work ethic that you put in. It's one thing to tell people to work hard. It's another thing for you to work hard yourself, and people, take a cue from you. Right, they get inspired, they get motivated. For me, like, I would say, learning from observing you has actually helped shape my own leadership philosophy. I was telling somebody last week, like, for me, I see myself more as a collaborative leader. Right, I don't need to tell you to do things. Right, I participate in the process, and when you observe that this leader is, getting their hands, dirty, getting knee deep, into these things, you want to be involved in the process. And that's something that I observed from you and, learned and incorporated into my own, leadership style as well. But throughout that journey, the journey has definitely been a roller coaster, right? What kind of challenges would you say you have faced, in your journey to leadership that has actually molded you? Because they say what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger, right? So which of the challenges, the highs and lows, would you like to share? such that our
Okay,
audience is
I
able to
mean,
learn
like
too.
I tell people that I would be very naive to say it's all been bed of roses. You're definitely going to have your challenges, ups and down, wherever you are, wherever you work, whether it's your home, whether it's your office, your personal life, your careers, and all that. But one of the things I do is, I mean, when I do have those low moments, I try to dig in. I look at interesting times I've had. I mean, to try and call for that inner strength, to pull through. I remember a very Sunday in 2005. Yeah, that was like 7 months after I joined the firm. I almost resigned. I thought
I think I remember you shared the story.
I thought I couldn't cope. Yeah,
Is it the one where you were robbed?
No, not even that. I mean, I thought the work was, getting it was like 2 weeks after I joined the firm. I mean, that's a Lagos, very popular Lagos one chance stuff.
Crazy story.
It was up till now. I couldn't take public transport. It's only when I'm outside of town that I do that. The trauma is still there after like 20 years. But there was a particular day where I thought it was very complex. The work was sort of like too much. I couldn't really cope. And this was someone who's qualified before coming in. Called one of my friends then, who incidentally I told you was that friend of mine that I met in NYC, and I told him I wanted to leave. I think this thing is just too complex, and he said no, that I can't, that I wouldn't, that I just stay. And I'm like, okay,
we die here.
So at that time, and I used it to encourage people because this was someone who was already qualified as an accountant, who's lectured people, then coming in, thought it was tough. So over the years, you've always had that, maybe not meeting deadlines and working with different people, people with different background, different cultural orientation, working with people that you would call very smooth and people that are very difficult, whether colleagues or whether clients. But those things are very good. Like I always tell people that how do you know a very good pilot or a very good sailor? Is when there's storm in the sea. So you need to have those experiences, molded together to make you mix of the good. That's the best thing. You can't just, because if you've passed through everything that's been very easy, by the time you're faced with challenges, then it's going to be, very, very difficult and tough for you. So I've had all those things. Coming over to Abuja, where I was perhaps coming to properly set up the assurance practice, had a fair of challenges, getting people to come in. So taking tough decisions as well, because when you look at it, you're empathetic, but at the same time, you need to take some tough decisions. I always tell people that I work with clients, and I tell them that maybe my job really is not to make you happy every time. If you want to smile, then you go get someone selling ice cream. That's not my job. My job is to add value to you, be a value addition. And at times when I do that, when I tell you the things you need to hear, not the things you want to hear, you might not be happy with me initially.
Exactly.
You might then later realize it. So perhaps it might not be my job to make you happy every time, but as long as I'm adding value and we can both see it from an objective point of view, that's good. So I think all those things, working with tough clients, working with very easy clients and with people, and I've had bosses that have really, really trained and mentored me well. A lot of them are no longer in the firm. We've lost two of them, sadly. Tolu Adeleke, the late Tolu Adeleke, and Daniel Asapokai. I went through their tutelage. Interesting guys. The current partners that became partner before me worked with different people. Like you said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Picked up the good sides, also the bad sides, because I can't be good 100%. But like I always say, when you do what you enjoy and you enjoy what you do, it becomes very easy for you. And then, you couple it up with prayer as well to make things easy for you. But things don't always come very easy, so you need to be prepared for the challenges and the tough road ahead, because it's always going to happen. Even life will not be interesting if everything is very easy. So I always say jokingly that it's not exciting when there are no issues. That's when it becomes exciting. When you have different things and then you have a support system, a very strong support system from home. Right from my parents, when I was growing up, So the sort of friends I had, not that they're all good friends. You definitely have some that will be bad influences to you, but as you're growing up, you need to know how to win, to filter them. And then when I got married, very, very great support system from my wife. We started having babies, and Abuja for me has been very, very good in terms of, having time for the family, planning it. I try to
we're better than Lagos.
Do that. I spend a lot of time at work, committed, but at the same time, I'm still committed from my own front and some other things that I do. My church, I'm an elder in my church. Social activity, I'm a vice president of a club I belong. So I try to sort of balance, do quite a lot of, maybe little things in different places just to balance my life and ensure that I'm not just 100% work person. I try to go around and do a lot of things, and maybe a philosophy that I also consider quite important is you're a mirror. People tend to act or tend to do what they tend to see you do, not what you say most times. You say a lot of things, but try to practice what you preach, and that is what we tell. You're a mirror, especially when you're in a position of influence. You've got sphere of influence. It could be small as 2, 3. It could be as large as 50, 100. But people look at you. They see what you do. You're a mirror. So I try to get that human touch. When people see me, what do they see about me? Is it just about my work, or is it about my work and about me as a person? Tolu, not just as a partner of PwC. Tolu as a partner and as a fan of Manchester United. Tolu, as a partner and as a husband to a loving wife and also a father to 3 kids. So I make that conscious effort for people to see me from that angle as well, and not just to see me at work and the only thing they say about me is work. So that is it for me.
It's a partner. Interested. I saw the video that the current crop of PwC Abuja staff made for you on your birthday. It was quite emotional. I don't know.
Surprised.
Did you shed some tears?
I was actually surprised because interestingly, I was in Germany on that day, so I didn't really have much time because I went to do some work there. And on that day, of course, I had calls from my wife, from everybody. And when I saw that video, the first thing I did, I actually shed some tears, really, because I then sent to my wife, to my kids, and they looked at it, my siblings, my mom, and then some of my friends, and I thought it's just some sort of feedback for me. It reminds me every year, the more I want to do and the more I need to do to create that impact in my sphere of influence, to be able to see the change that I desire every time. So it's just a reminder that I can do more. That was a message that I got in that video, and I always pray for grace to be able to do much more than what I'm doing.
Interesting. So from my own, would I say, brief experience of being an auditor, because if I were to compare statistically the number of years of my life I've put into audit versus the number of years that you have put into audit, it's a lopsided ratio. You have longer years, right? But I've been able to observe something, especially with difficult clients. A lot of times, the clients that were ex-auditors tend to be the most difficult because they won't even be recommending audit procedures to you, are telling you, no, this is a document that you need. And if you ask them for certain things, they will ask you, what do you need that for? For you, your experience, which kind of clients have you really enjoyed working with the most? And if any interesting example comes to mind, what difficult story would you like to share?
It's even more difficult when the people that have sort of trained you before, or people that have been your ex-bosses, then they start telling you, no, this was not how I trained you. Can you go this? What are you trying to achieve? No, are you trying to tell me that I didn't train you very those sort of things? And I think it's just to to know how to manage it on both sides. And again, I think I'd said it earlier. Auditors have a lot of influence, and some people will say they're sort of like powerful because of the role they play, and again because of the attendant risk that comes with that job. You need to know how to again manage it, and as I said earlier, I think it's just sort of like managing the person and the clients, obviously, and using a bit of emotional intelligence. You deal with you need to the same way I try to understand the people that I work with in terms of my colleagues. It's the same way I try to study my clients. There are some that they're very comfortable with you going as far as speaking the language that they understand. I'm a Yoruba from the southwestern part of Nigeria. There are some clients that they feel comfortable, you just greet them in Yoruba, Ekaro, that's it. But at the same time, you have to be very professional. You don't just cross that line because you want to meet up with the expectation of the client. Let them see you as being professional and as someone that's very approachable. That's also very important. We always say we want to build trust. How do you build trust, really? It's not until you become a president or something. You need to build trust with your clients. You need to build trust with people that you work with, where they're able to call you and share things with you, confidential information, because that is very key as well, and seek for your advice. I have people I've worked with that are no longer my clients that call me once in a while to say, I want to pick your brain for this, and I also do it. At times when I have some things maybe in the industry and I know I've got some people there, let me call them. It's because of that touch. You need to have that relationship. We always claim and we always push people to have relationship with clients, but you need to know where the boundary is. You need to have that delineation of that relationship, and it starts with your immediate environment. You can't build relationship with your clients if you don't have with your fellow staff. So you need to ensure that the people you work with, you might not be the best of friends, but you could have professional relationship and still get the work done. The most important thing as a leader, even with your clients, you need to create that right ambience and atmosphere, for two of you to connect. At work, for your staff to be willing, they wake up and they want to come to work. It's different from waking up on a Monday and you feel, because if you look at it on the average, maybe in Nigeria, especially during busy seasons, you have people spending like 16, 17 hours at work. People leave very early, maybe like 7. They don't get back home until like 10, 11. If you spend that pretty amount of time at work, you need to better make it enjoyable, because you're spending a lot of your percentage of your life around that time at work. So you don't have to make it terrible. Yes, it's going to be very, very stressful. I share a lot of stories with people where I've been site till 3 a.m., 4 a.m. You're definitely going to have that. I look back at those days and I smile, It is going to happen. So I tell them it is going to happen. But what do you do when those things happen? You're definitely going to be with clients as well. That you're going to be there 2 a.m., 3 a.m. You work very hard, work very late, but you both need to make it conducive for yourself. And it's about understanding each other. Where are the boundaries? And you ensure that you respect each other's boundaries, and then you connect, and other things will fall in seamlessly. That's it. But definitely there's times where you have issues, there'll be times where I remember I was sort of like almost upset with some set of people some few weeks ago, and I thought I shouted at them, It's one of the things I don't like. And I called them afterwards to say, sorry, I think I shouted at you guys. So again, because I don't want someone shout at me. I don't want it. Yes. So, and I thought I did. So when I called, I say, sorry, apologies, but it wasn't intended to, to be this way. Let's get this thing sorted and all. So that's it. Yeah.
Interesting. Speaking of issues, I just remembered, there was one time where we had a client and the client was asking us, like, what is your materiality threshold?
That's probably an expletive. They always come like, this is not material, and I tell them, you don't define it for me, please. So it's always like that. That's why you need to be very assertive. You need to be very confident and knowledgeable, and that's what we do. To get our people equipped in going out there, because when people see you, they don't, for the very first few years or few months, they hardly know your name. They mention the name of your firm. So you're the eyes and ears of the firm, that anything you do is labeled the firm's name. So you need to be well equipped to be able to get to that setting and become confident in whatever you discuss and converse with the other party.
Interesting. I think there was a time around when I was clocking 30, I was having some sober reflection, and I thought to myself, like, where did my 20s go? And I was like, oh, it's like half of my 20s went into looking into spreadsheets and cooking numbers that I don't have.
That's maybe if I can interject you there, that's what I tell people, that because it'll be so funny that you look back and you realize that it's pretty gone. I mean, the life is gone. So apart from work, I tell people you need to look for something interesting to do. You know, you spend a lot of time at work, but the work will end one day. Please and please spend some time to look for other things to do. For example, I try consciously to try and learn something off work and do something totally different than when I tell people that, like, really, you do this? That was the time I started playing musical instruments. I started learning saxophone.
Wow.
I studied languages. Obviously, that is very critical and important now. But with AI, you don't even need to learn. I was in Germany for 3 weeks. AI. You think I'm a German, you know? I can even tell you good Morgan, you know?
Yeah, good Morgan. The Gators, yeah.
So currently, I'm a biker. I mean, I ride bikes, and when people see me, you know, I've taken it to work a few times because I want to do something different. I don't want to ask myself that question: where did my 20s go? I can analyze it. Where did my 30s go? Now
Analyze another spreadsheet.
Crossed my mid 40s. I don't want someone to ask me and say, where did your 40s go? And I'm struggling. I don't want to struggle. I want to lay claims to my career and the other interesting thing. I don't want to speak with you and the only thing I get to say every time is just about my work. No, I need to have a blend of stories. My work, my family, my career, obviously, my environment, my social interaction is very important to me. I think I'm very active socially, and I want to be active socially. So like, I look back and I feel that it's not been wasted years for me. Yeah.
Interested. So, like, what are you like most proud of, all round, right? In terms of, you know, career, in terms of personal life, like, what are those, you know, things that really make you proud as a person?
I mean, from a point of, I mean, from a career point of view, obviously, again, a lot of people would want to think as a partner because that seems to be the, if you're in a professional service firm.
The pinnacle.
Yeah. So, yeah, I remember the day I was admitted as a partner. Yes, obviously, one of the proudest moments of my life. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I always look back to it as, I just thought it's sort of like the beginning for me, because then you sort of like have more influence to change things that you've always desired to do, because you want to see some changes, and now you seem to have a bit of more influence. The sort of people you're exposed to, the sort of clients or people, you know, you talk to, and you should be able to. I was just telling you today, I was talking to one of my ex-clients, and it was like, oh, sorry, Tolu, if I'd known that you've been in town the last 3 days, I probably would have invited you to some events and the London Stock Exchange and all those things. So the sort of people, you know, you're exposed to and all that, you're in a position where you see maybe top government people, top private sector players, where you could shape opinions around policy, you know, thrusts, whether private or public sector. So I would say, yes, it's been a very proud moment for me. And I think the day I had my first child, the day I became a father as well. Yeah, I was very proud in 2010. And I still look at my kids, you know, how fast they've grown. So I think for me, that's much more important to me than work. When I see them, I smile to myself and I'm like, it looked like yesterday when they were just toddlers. So for me, I want to be a proud father, and I can't just be it by words. I need to do quite a lot. The way I try to do at work, I think I need to do like maybe times 2 or times 3 at home, at the home front. Try to see them grow, expose them as well to different things at an early age, and I do that for my kids a lot. You know, gymnastics, tennis, music. Yeah, I mean, gymnastics is quite big in my family. My kids, they go for competitions and all that. Then, so I, that is my proud moment, being a family man and committed family member. That's it.
Wow, fantastic. Wow, I'm placing you on the spot now. Like, there's something I know about you. I don't know if it is a nickname, but I know you have this alter ego you use, which is the eagle. So if you were to be a fighter, right? You know, I get to interview and talk to a lot of guys from the UFC, from Bellator. I've even had a world champion boxer on this, podcast.
Wow. That's great.
So, in the voice of Bruce Buffer, it would be fighting out of Abuja, Nigeria, by way of London, United Kingdom. Introducing a champion from PwC, Tolu Adeleke, the Eagle Adeleke. So, you share the same nickname with Khabib Nurmagomedov, the Eagle. What inspired that title? How did you come about the Eagle?
It's I think it's something that started not quite long. I mean, for me, when I was growing up, when I was much younger, I had another name, and some people, in fact, I think I have more friends that call me by Stone than Tolu.
Wow.
And I tell people that, okay, maybe that it was when I was growing up, people think I was always doing hard things. But I tell them, oh no, it has roots in the Bible. I even tell people that when you go to John 1:42 King James Version, you're going to see the name there. It's a Greek word, Cephas, known as stone. But eagle for me, it's about my aspiration. I said something about Awolowo, late Chief Obafemi Awolowo, as being a visionary leader. You look at the likes of Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. When you talk about visionary leaders, and people talk about Paul Kagame of Rwanda as well. I've been to Kigali about 4 or 5 times. And when you talk about Eagle is known about soaring and having that vision to see far. So I thought it was something I really, really want to do. I want to be a selfless leader. I want to be a visionary leader. I want to be someone who has that strength. People used to say I could endure, So I just thought that for me captures what I want to be. So it reminds, I remind myself, or it reminds me of someone. Because I would say, to some extent, I'm in a leadership position. Because of the sort of influence I have, the people I work with. But I want to be a visionary leader. So every time I get to hear that, I try to remind myself the kind of leader I want to be. Visionary leader. That's it for me. That's the.
It's interesting to also know that the Bible makes references to the eagle.
The eagle, yes. Yeah. That you shall mount your wings and fly like.
Yes.
So it is.
Interesting. Wow. But speaking of African legends, African legendary figures, right? Aside from the likes of Obafemi Awolowo or Paul Kagame of Rwanda, who are those African, legendary figures that you look up to, that you would, love to emulate in some way, or the ones that you celebrate and you really admire in your life? Who are those figures?
And I think, I'm sure if you ask this question, 99 out of 100 will tell you Nelson Mandela.
Wow.
I'm one of the 99. Incidentally, not the one. He was a very great leader of Africa. He was very selfless. He was very dedicated, very passionate about what he wanted to see. Emancipation of Africans, and he truly lived it. I mean, he became a president and said he was going to be a one-time president. I read a few books of his. Last time I was in Cape Town, sad that I couldn't go to Robben Island. I wanted to go with my wife and my kids, but it was very stormy that day. There was a lot of storm, so we couldn't, go, because I wanted to feel what he felt spending 27 years there. And what captured him for me, if you've seen this movie by Matt Damon, Invictus, and Morgan Freeman, He celebrated the 1995 victory of South Africa winning the Rugby World Cup. That was the first time they won it. Before, I think they won They've won the last two editions, but the very first one after he became president in 94, then he won it in 1995 Invictus. I mean, just encapsulated the man for who he was, and it's someone that I really, really admired as an African. But coming back home in Nigeria, apart from Obafemi Awolowo, I would say our former president Olusegun Obasanjo. Why? I mean, he came in at a time where we need stability, a lot of stability in 1999, and he actually did that. For that amazing feat of his in terms of stabilizing Nigeria. I mean, we're just coming from the military era when he became the president from 1999 to 2007. And I think that stability was what the other leaders actually. So, I mean, he takes someone with very strong convictions, you know, to sort of like, at times you need to be bullish about it, but you need to get your points, you know. So those are the sort of leaders. Now we have new leaders emerging, coming up, East Africa, South Africa, some in West Africa as well, but I think it will still take a very long time to get to the standards that have been set by those statesmen that we have. Hopefully, we should, maybe with the advent of technology, to see how that can be used in leadership to make things. Because right now you get more information, you have access to more information to make decisions that should be able to better the lives of people than we used to have. I wonder how we used to travel in those days. I mean, how we used to go for holidays, where you never tell the person you're going to meet, you know. So with things now, so it means that taking decisions now should be faster, it should be easier, it should be better. So we should have modern and better leaders than we used to have then. So then if you're able to marry that human nature with the technological advancement, we should start seeing, you know, the results. But again, the standards are so high now, expectations of people in terms of everybody being knowledgeable on like those days. So yes, so a whole lot of expectations, meeting those standards is, would I say, is more difficult? Yes, because you need to then serve the interest of a lot of people, and now also there's a lot of distractions. Different things, depending on how you see things. Technology could be a distraction. It could be an enabler, depending on sort of how you view it and how you look at things. Yeah.
Interesting. Like, you have given a lot to unpack here, but then I'll first touch on Obasanjo. I was privileged to have met him in person. I've never met anybody in my life that is more assertive than that man. He's an embodiment of being assertive, and yeah, like
he has that presence.
Yeah, he has that. He has that presence, right? And speaking of you know, the current crop of leaders, speaking of, you know, the current situation in the world right now, AI is taking over. But what are your thoughts on, you know, the future with AI? AI, a lot of people think, has come to take their jobs. A lot of people even have like massive concerns, like security concerns, right? About, you know, the potential of, you know, AI being used to wreak, you know, certain havoc, right? Potential security risks, right? And also AI is also reducing human interaction. But for you, looking at the AI space and projecting into the future, what are your thoughts on?
I mean, benefits versus the cost. Things interestingly, things will get better. Even if you look at it in the last 20 years, looking at the evolution of when I started working in an era when we're using flash drives. I don't know, even before flash drives, we used to use floppy disk.
Yeah,
I mean, I started doing my reconciliations then at the bank using a floppy disk. Then we evolved to CDs, flash drives, and you know, I can't even remember the last time I saw flash drives. You know, things had evolved so much, even from phones and all that. And when you look at it, there are both sides to it. There's a positive side and a negative. I was just telling you about my visit to Germany where I spent 3 weeks. I would have had to require maybe the services of an interpreter for some of the things that I did while in Frankfurt. But PwC AI solved a lot of, problems for me without that human interface. And you touched on something, reduction in human interactions. Yeah, we're having that. There are people that you might not have seen in the last 5 years physically. 10 years ago or 15 years ago, they would have had to complain. We've not even seen each other. But with WhatsApp, making video calls and all that, you feel as if you've seen each other. You're chatting for like 5 years. And someone tells you that we've not even seen you in the last 5 years. You're like, really? We've not even seen. So you still keep that. That is technology. And it's going to get, is it better or worse? Depending on the angle you look at it. Should there be regulation? Yes, I believe there should be regulation in everything, especially coming from the background I come from. I look at things from a risk point of view. If everything is going on well, what happens when it suddenly changes? Yeah. They can't do everything. You can't do everything. What it means is that people need to sharpen their skills. You can't be rigid. Gone are the days where I studied this in school, I've been given this to do in my workplace, and that is what I want to be a master in. So it shows that you need to be a master in a lot of things right now. You have to be flexible, taking on new skills, taking on new roles, because that is going to come in terms of taking the jobs of people. It is inevitable to take some. It is inevitable. I just gave you an example of what happened to me in the last 3 weeks. So that would always happen. But for some of us that are remaining, it means we just need to understand that there's a threat here, and we need to proactively respond to it. You don't wait. If you wait, the way things move right now, gone are the days where you see technology evolution, like, okay, maybe 2 years, 3 years, you see one big thing. The way things move now, in a week, in 2 weeks, you could have seen some massive, innovation. What we need to do is to sort of like harness, and in the firm that I work for, PwC, we're even using that. I just got a message in one of our chat groups. PwC is going to be the biggest, partner, one of the AI solutions in Africa. Yeah, I just got that today or yesterday. So we're trying to see how in fact, not even trying to see, we've already started harnessing the positive aspects of it and see how we can positively impact on the work we do. So we look at it in a collaborative way and not a competitive way. Because if you look at it in a competitive way, you're never going to win. You're never going to win because that thing harnesses, the brains of course you can understand. So if you look at it as competition, definitely you're starting to plan for failure. But if you look at it in what ways can I introduce it to my work in a collaborative way to make me work better deliver value to the people that I'm serving, because technology has been the bedrock of our work since I've joined anyway in the last 20 years. So definitely can always be better when you harness the positive potentials of artificial technology. But does it need to be regulated? Yes, it has to be regulated with some sort of regulation.
It's quite interesting because technology without regulation is quite dangerous. Well, interesting how it has actually influenced human interaction in recent time. You were talking about your time in Germany, right? Using AI for communication. I think that also happened to me recently as well. I was in Lithuania and did not even understand the language, but then I had to use certain AI tools to communicate with the locals, and it was quite a smooth interaction. Okay. So speaking of things outside of work, right? What would you say is a competency or a skill or a talent that you have that people do not really know about or you're quite proud of?
What have I not said about me? I think it's just I pick up maybe the people that I worked with when I first joined the firm. I've always been a social animal and a nocturnal animal. When I was living my university days, I used to go out a lot, in those days, even when I was studying for my ICANN exam. So right now, people see me at work, when they see that part of me, they see me all dressed up to my jacket, my tie. Some people still come to me and say, why am I still wearing tie and suits when it's not even sort of like mandatory again in the firm? But I always tell them I wore it for 14 years so before we switched, so I'm used to it and I feel more comfortable. So when you see me in that, and then maybe the next day you see me on a bike and you're like, you see me all dressed up in a bandana and you're like, this is the same. Or you see me, you know, at the stadium shouting. I don't know if you saw my video when Man U beat Man City. It was all over my WhatsApp, and you see me at that, and everybody starts saying, "Is this the same guy we saw at work like 2 days ago?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." So I can easily switch, you know, depending on the environment where I find myself. So that bit of me about being flexible has really helped me a lot. It means I could cope and blend in love. So that part of me surprises people when they see that social, because you know, you see me at work, you see, especially when we have meetings together, you see me at a meeting making presentations, applying presentations, that you're like, then you see me the next day wearing a bandana and wearing my boots, and you're like, same guy, you know. So that's part of me about working smart and playing hard. I preach it a lot, and I try to do that so that you're able to enjoy your work, because you spend a lot of time there, so you create that avenue. And also at the home front, I try to do a lot of things interesting, you know, to my people, so that we can always create fun out of life. That's it for me. Yeah.
Interesting. So from me to you, the last question for me is, what would you like your legacy to be?
Okay. I mean, for Tolu to be remembered as someone who tried to, you know, leave behind positive impacts with my immediate sphere of influence and other people that I've interacted with, you know, to be able to change people's mindsets in terms of a lot of things, and getting to understand what success, what it means to really be successful, you know. That is something I want people to know about me. They say, okay, this is a guy in his little sphere of influence was able, because if we all do it in our little sphere of influence, then you have that bigger macro impact if you do it at that micro level. So for me, I want to be remembered for a guy who came and positively impacted on people I worked with. That you're big person there, small person, and I'm able to have at least a positive influence, whether it's your career, your life, or whatever. So that's it for me.
A wonderful one. So at the end of the report, we have a tradition where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest, and you know, the current guest leaves a question for the next one. So a question was left with you by Dr. Adesowa Ekpada. She is a GP in England, apparently a Nigerian diaspora, practicing in England. As she says, what country would you like to travel to next, and why?
And why? Okay. Maybe not because I have someone from from there. Mauritius, I've just seen, but I think it's I was actually planning between maybe Maldives and Maldives and then Mauritius, obviously, but it looks in my travel plans. You never know. I mean, I never planned I was going to be in Frankfurt, you know, based on work, but where I would really want to go, I plan to be in either Mauritius or Mombasa, for my next destination.
Interesting. So, what question would you like to be next?
I would like to know the next guest's orientation of success, the definition of success. You know,
what's your definition of success?
When opportunity meets preparation, you need to be prepared, and those opportunities would come, which you may or may not be able to create. But I would like to get different perspectives around it, because people need to understand what success means, and they need to work towards creating their own success for themselves.
Interesting. Thank God I am not the next guest. I'm the next guest. Thank you very much for your time today. You're highly appreciated. Words are not sufficient to express how grateful I am for you spending your time to grace this interview. So, wishing you the very best in all of your endeavors.
Thank you very much. Been a pleasure. Pleasure is mine.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cheers.